The silence in the auditorium grows heavier as the instructor's cybernetic hand brings up detailed holographic projections. What you see before you is not meant to frighten, but to educate. He begins, his organic eye reflecting the blue glow of the display. The image shows a simple human figure, unaugmented, and wearing what appears to be primitive camouflage gear. Several cadets exchange skeptical glances. A Zentari student in the front row raises their primary appendage, crystalline structure glinting under the lights. "Professor, surely there is a mistake. These humans lack any biological advantages. No enhanced organs, no secondary nervous systems, not even basic genetic modifications." The instructor's expression remains stern as he rolls his hover chair closer to the front row. An understandable assumption, but one that could cost you your life. He taps his cybernetic leg, producing a hollow metallic sound that echoes through the chamber. "It cost me mine." The hologram shifts to display various human military positions, while other species focused on creating perfect soldiers through genetic engineering and cybernetic enhancement. Humans took a different approach. They perfected the art of patience and precision. A new image appears, showing the effective ranges of various species marksmen. The human line extends far beyond the others, almost double the nearest competitor. Notice this disparity, the instructor continues. The Murky can see into ultraviolet spectrum. The Valkyans possess targeting computers in their brains, yet neither can match a trained human sniper's effectiveness. The instructor brings up footage from a frontier battle. The video shows a fortified position of Zentari troops, their crystalline forms gleaming in the alien sunlight. One by one, over the course of several minutes, key positions fall silent. No visible attacker, no energy signatures, just the occasional crack of what the cadets now recognize as primitive chemical propellant weapons. 3 days, the instructor says, pausing the footage. A single human sniper held this position under observation for 3 days before taking the first shot. No food, minimal water, barely moving enough to maintain circulation. Most species would find such stillness physically impossible, mentally unbearable. A Nexari cadet, their tentacles writhing with anxiety, speaks up. "But Professor, surely modern scanning technology would detect them." The instructor interrupts, bringing up another hologram. "This is what we thought. Until we learned that humans had developed countermeasures for every detection method we possessed. Heat signatures masked by environmental suits. Electronic emissions eliminated by mechanical weapons. Even their breathing controlled to avoid detection by atmospheric sensors." The room grows quieter as the instructor rolls to a storage unit and removes a long cloth-wrapped object. "This," he says, carefully unwrapping it, "is the weapon that took my limbs. A simple mechanical device, using chemical propellants and refined metallurgy. No power source to detect, no energy signature to track." The cadets lean forward, some extending sensory organs for a better look at the human sniper rifle. Its simplicity seems to unsettle them more than any advanced weapon would. But most frightening, the instructor continues, is not their weapons or their techniques, but their mindset. A human sniper thinks differently than any other known species. They don't just observe targets. They study patterns, predict behaviors, understand psychology. They don't just take shots. They shape the battlefield through the mere possibility of their presence. He carefully rewraps the rifle. "This course will teach you about every major special operations unit in known space. But remember this. When you encounter most special forces, you will see them coming. When you encounter a human sniper, you won't. The first sign of their presence is usually the last thing one of your companions ever experiences." The instructor's cybernetic components whir as he returns to his position at the front of the class. "Now shall we discuss how a single human sniper changed the course of the Battle of New Singapore?" The cadets straighten in their seats, data pads ready, now fully engaged in the lesson about humanity's most effective long-range specialists. The galaxy had learned to fear many things, but few inspired the same level of respect and dread as the human sniper. The holographic display in the classroom shifts to a tactical overview of the Centaurian moon base. The instructor manipulates the image with practiced movements of his cybernetic hand, highlighting key defensive positions across the cratered landscape. 3,000 elite troops, he begins, letting the number sink in. Armed with the latest plasma weaponry, neural-linked battle computers, and reactive armor, all stopped by a single human sniper. The display zooms in on a vast stretch of rocky terrain, marking the location where the first shot was recorded. A murky cadet raises her luminescent appendage. "Professor, our historical records indicate that such a small force could not possibly halt an army of that size. The mathematics do not support such an outcome." The instructor's organic eye crinkles with what might be amusement. "Ah, but that's where human snipers rewrite mathematical probability. Let me show you the tactical analysis." He brings up a new series of data streams. The first shot came at precisely 3:47 local time, taking out the forward scout at 2.3 kilometers, a shot that our targeting computers calculated as having a 0.02% chance of success. The display shows the aftermath, the entire Centaurian advance grinding to a halt. The second shot came 27 minutes later, eliminating the battalion's chief tactical officer. After that, no more shots were fired by the sniper for the next 30 hours. Confused murmurs ripple through the classroom. A Valkyrian student, their neural crystals pulsing with confusion, speaks up. "But if the humans ceased firing, why did the advance not continue?" "Because," the instructor explains, rotating the tactical display, "the human sniper had achieved their objective without firing another round. The entire battalion was effectively paralyzed by the possibility of another shot. They had no way to detect the sniper's position, no way to predict where the next strike would come from." The hologram shows heat signatures of the Centaurian forces, clustered behind whatever cover they could find. Look at their deployment pattern. 3,000 troops, spreading out to minimize casualties from area weapons, but clustering to avoid sniper fire. A tactical contradiction that made them vulnerable to other human units. He brings up another data set. The psychological impact was even more significant than the casualties. Every soldier in that battalion knew they could be next. Every movement could trigger a shot. Every exposed position could be their last. The human sniper had turned the entire battlefield into a psychological weapon. A new cadet, their species adapted to pure logic, raises an objection. But the statistical probability of being struck was minimal. Only 2 casualties out of 3,000. The rational response would be to continue the advance. The instructor nods slowly. A logical observation. But human snipers understand something that pure mathematics cannot quantify. Fear. They don't just shoot to kill. They shoot to terrify. Each shot is carefully chosen not just for tactical value, but for psychological impact. The display shifts to show the command structure of the Centaurian force. Notice how the second target was chosen. Not the highest-ranking officer, but the one whose death would cause the most confusion in the chain of command. Human snipers study their target's social structures as carefully as they study ballistics. He brings up a final set of statistics. In the end, the human sniper expended exactly 2 rounds to halt an entire battalion for 30 hours. The energy expenditure ratio is fascinating. Approximately 200 joules of chemical propellant energy to neutralize a force equipped with weapons totaling over 500 megajoules of potential firepower. The classroom falls silent as the implications sink in. The instructor continues, his voice grave. "This is why human snipers changed our understanding of warfare. They showed us that superior numbers, advanced technology, and overwhelming firepower could be rendered irrelevant by a single individual with the right skills and mindset." He starts shutting down the holographic display. Remember this lesson well. When you face human snipers, you're not just fighting against their weapons or their tactics. You're fighting against their understanding of psychology, their patience, and their ability to turn your own numbers against you. The lights in the auditorium brighten slightly. Now shall we examine how human snipers adapted their techniques to counter our technological advantages. The biological factors at play are quite remarkable. The xenobiologist's presentation captures the complete attention of the Galactic Council. Her holographic displays show detailed comparisons between human physiology and other sentient species, focusing on aspects that had previously seemed unremarkable. Distinguished council members, she begins, adjusting her scientific robes. Our initial assumptions about human biological capabilities were fundamentally flawed. We focused on what they lacked rather than understanding their unique adaptations. The first display shows a human eye in remarkable detail. Unlike most species, humans developed parallel visual processing systems. While their basic visual acuity is unremarkable, their ability to track moving targets while maintaining awareness of their surroundings is unmatched. A Valkyrian council member interrupts, neural crystals pulsing with skepticism. But our species has 4 eyes with independent targeting systems. Surely this provides superior capability. The xenobiologist brings up comparative data. An understandable assumption, but incorrect. Human visual processing allows them to maintain focus on multiple points while calculating distance, wind speed, and environmental factors simultaneously. Their brains develop this capability through evolutionary hunting practices. She switches to a respiratory diagram. Even more remarkable is their breathing control. Humans can voluntarily control their breathing rate, even stopping completely for short periods. This level of conscious control over an autonomous function is unique among known species. The display shifts to show recorded footage of a human sniper during a training exercise. Observe how they synchronize their breathing with their heartbeat. They can maintain this state for hours, something our species found impossible to replicate even with cybernetic assistance. A murky representative raises a bioluminescent tentacle. Our research indicated that prolonged stillness causes severe physiological stress in most species. How do humans maintain position for such extended periods? The xenobiologist nods, bringing up new data. Humans possess remarkable muscular control and endurance. Their bodies evolved to handle long periods of low-energy activity followed by bursts of intense exertion. More importantly, they can mentally override physical discomfort that would force other species to move. She displays brain wave patterns. Notice this state that they call flow. Their neural activity enters a unique pattern, allowing them to maintain focus while filtering out distractions. Combined with their ability to regulate body temperature through microscopic sweat glands, they can remain virtually undetectable to thermal imaging. The council chamber fills with murmurs as she continues. Their skeletal structure, while appearing primitive, allows them to maintain stable firing positions in almost any terrain. Their joint flexibility lets them adapt to environmental conditions that would leave other species exposed. A new series of images appears, showing human snipers in various environments. Their endocrine system responds to stress differently than other species. Under conditions that would cause panic or flight responses in others, humans can maintain operational clarity. They call this getting in the zone. The xenobiologist pauses, letting the information sink in. But perhaps most remarkable is their neural plasticity. Human snipers actually reshape their brain structure through training. They develop new neural pathways specifically for their role, enhancing their natural capabilities beyond what we thought possible. She brings up one final display, showing the human sniper's brain activity during a successful long-range shot. This level of focus, combined with their unique biological advantages, makes them natural precision hunters. They don't need genetic engineering or cybernetic enhancement because their bodies evolved perfectly for this role. The council chamber remains silent as the implications become clear. The xenobiologist concludes her presentation with a sobering observation. We've spent centuries trying to engineer the perfect long-range combat specialist. Meanwhile, nature had already created one. Every human has the biological foundation to become what we fail to artificially produce. She closes her holographic displays, her voice carrying across the chamber. I recommend immediate revision of our species' capability classifications. Humans should no longer be categorized as biologically unremarkable. Their adaptations, while subtle, make them uniquely suited for precision warfare in ways we're only beginning to understand. The council members exchange glances, their various biological displays showing signs of concern. They had been looking for obvious advantages: extra limbs, enhanced organs, biological weapons. Instead, they found that the most dangerous adaptations were the ones they had overlooked as insignificant. The instructor brings up historical footage of ancient human hunters, drawing gasps from the alien cadets. The grainy images show humans pursuing prey across vast distances, moving with deliberate patience through challenging terrain. What you're witnessing, the instructor explains, gesturing to the display, is the foundation of human sniper techniques. These practices date back thousands of years before they achieved spaceflight. While our ancestors were developing energy weapons, humans were perfecting the art of the silent kill. A Zentari cadet raises their crystalline appendage. But Professor, these methods seem primitive. Surely technological advancement would have rendered such skills obsolete. The instructor's cybernetic components whir as he adjusts his position. That assumption has led to the downfall of many superior forces. Humans didn't abandon these skills. They enhanced them. Watch this comparison. The display splits, showing ancient hunting techniques alongside modern human sniper operations. Notice the similarities, the way they read wind patterns, track targets, and most importantly, how they think. Every human sniper carries millennia of hunting knowledge in their tactical approach. He brings up new footage showing human snipers during their training. Their preparation methods blend ancient meditation techniques with modern technology. While our species focus on equipment mastery, humans spend equal time training their minds. The footage shows human snipers lying motionless for days, enduring extreme weather conditions. This mental conditioning begins with their cultural understanding of patience. Many human cultures have traditions of stillness, of becoming one with their environment. They call it becoming the ground or melting into the landscape. A Nexari student, tentacles writhing with curiosity, speaks up. How do they maintain psychological stability in isolation? Our species requires regular social interaction to prevent mental deterioration. The instructor nods approvingly at the question. Humans have a unique capacity for solitude. Their cultural history is filled with tales of lone hunters, solitary warriors, and isolated guardians. They don't just endure solitude. Some of them thrive in it. He switches the display to show various human hunting traditions from different regions of Earth. Each of these cultural practices contributed to modern sniper techniques. Arctic hunters taught them to read snow patterns. Desert tribes showed them how to handle extreme heat. Jungle dwellers demonstrated methods of complete concealment. The classroom watches intently as the instructor brings up tactical analysis of modern sniper operations. Observe how they combine these ancient skills with current technology. They don't rely solely on targeting computers or thermal imaging. Instead, they use technology to enhance their traditional techniques. A Valkyrian cadet's neural crystals pulse with realization. Is this why our countermeasures often fail? We design them to defeat technology, not inherited knowledge. Precisely, the instructor confirms, his organic eye showing approval. Human snipers can operate effectively even when their technology fails. Their cultural background gives them capabilities that can't be blocked by electronic warfare or sensor jamming. He brings up one final piece of footage, showing the human sniper constructing a high position. Watch how naturally they read the environment. This isn't learned behavior. It's ingrained cultural knowledge passed down through generations. They don't just set up a position. They become part of the landscape. The display shifts to show success rates of various special operations units. Human snipers consistently outperform more technologically advanced units because their cultural foundation gives them adaptability that can't be programmed or engineered. The instructor pauses, letting the implications sink in. We try to understand human snipers by studying their weapons and technology. We should have been studying their history, their cultures, their ways of thinking. Their true advantage isn't in their equipment, it's in their heritage. He begins shutting down the holographic displays. Remember this: human snipers aren't just soldiers with specialized training. They're the inheritors of countless generations of hunters, warriors, and survivors. Their cultural edge isn't something we can copy or counter because it's not about technology or tactics. It's about a way of life that evolved over thousands of years. The classroom falls silent as they process this revelation. They had been taught to fear human technology, but now they understood that the real threat lay in something far more fundamental: the accumulated wisdom of an entire species of hunters. The tactical display shows a sprawling alien metropolis on New Singapore, its crystalline spires reaching toward the purple sky. The instructor zooms in on key defensive positions, each marked with a small red indicator. 3 human snipers, he begins, his cybernetic hand steadily controlling the hologram. Just 3, against a force of 15,000. What happened next rewrote our understanding of urban warfare. The display highlights the first day of the siege. They struck 37 targets in the first 12 hours. No 2 shots from the same location. No pattern to predict. The city's defenders couldn't establish safe zones because the snipers kept relocating after every few shots. A murky student raises her sensory appendages in confusion. But the city had full-spectrum scanning capabilities. How did they remain undetected? The instructor brings up the scanning data from that period. Observe these readings. The humans had developed what they called ghillie suits, completely passive camouflage that adapted to any environment. No power signatures, no heat emissions, nothing for our sensors to detect. He zooms in on one of the suits recovered after the siege. The simplicity is brilliant. While we developed active camouflage requiring constant power, they created suits using local vegetation and materials. They became part of the environment rather than trying to hide from it. The display shifts to show the city's command structure breakdown. By day 3, the defending forces had lost 62 key personnel, not from random attacks, but precisely chosen targets that created maximum disruption. Communication officers, logistics coordinators, unit leaders, each chosen to amplify confusion and fear. Ascension cadets' crystalline structure pulses with agitation. But surely they could have been located by tracking their projectiles' trajectories. An excellent observation. The instructor notes, bringing up ballistic analysis data. The human snipers had accounted for this. They used advanced positioning techniques to create false trajectories, making it impossible to pinpoint their actual locations. Sometimes they would set up multiple firing positions just to confuse counter-sniper teams. The hologram shows the defensive measures implemented during the siege. The city's defenders tried everything: energy shields, thermal blankets, automated defense turrets. The humans adapted to each countermeasure, finding new angles, new weaknesses. He pulls up medical reports from the period. This is where we first documented human paranoia syndrome among our troops. The constant threat of invisible death from any direction began affecting unit cohesion. Soldiers refused to move without heavy cover. Supply lines broke down. The city began to paralyze itself. The display shows how the defenders began fortifying buildings, restricting movement to underground tunnels. They effectively imprisoned themselves, trying to hide from 3 individuals who might not even be in their sector anymore. An Xeri student's tentacles twist anxiously. How did they maintain such psychological pressure with so few operatives? The instructor's organic eye narrows. The human snipers understood something fundamental about fear. They didn't need to shoot constantly. The possibility of being shot was often more effective than actual attacks. They created an atmosphere where every window, every shadow, every quiet moment could hide death. He brings up the final casualty reports. In 2 weeks, 3 human snipers had effectively neutered a defending force of 15,000. Total ammunition expended, 147 rounds. Total defensive resources deployed against them, valued at over 3 billion credits. The classroom falls silent as the instructor switches to the aftermath analysis. The city's defenders eventually withdrew, not because they had suffered unbearable casualties, but because they could no longer function as an effective fighting force. The human snipers had achieved their objective: complete psychological dominance over a numerically superior force. He begins powering down the tactical display. This engagement changed how we approach urban warfare. We learned that no position is truly secure, no technology foolproof, no force large enough to guarantee safety against well-trained human snipers. The lights in the classroom gradually brighten. The Ghost War of New Singapore taught us that victory doesn't always require overwhelming force or superior technology. Sometimes, 3 individuals with the right skills can accomplish what an army cannot. The instructor's cybernetic components were softly in the silence. Next class, we'll examine how various species attempted to develop their own sniper programs in response to this incident. The results were enlightening. The instructor manipulates the holographic display, showing various alien adaptation programs developed in response to human sniper superiority. Each attempt represents billions of credits in research and development, yet the results tell a fascinating story of failure and revelation. The Arctians were the first to attempt biological modification. He begins, displaying their enhanced optical organs. They spent decades trying to replicate human visual processing. The results were impressive. Their modified warriors could track multiple targets across a broader spectrum than any human eye. A student raises an appendage, but surely that gave them an advantage. The instructor shakes his head, bringing up combat statistics. They could see better, yes, but they couldn't process the information the way humans do. The Archean brain, even enhanced, couldn't maintain the same level of focus. They sought everything but couldn't identify what mattered. The display shifts to show the Velderi targeting systems. This was their answer: neural-linked targeting computers that could calculate every environmental factor instantly. Wind speed, atmospheric pressure, gravity variations, all processed faster than any human could manage. He brings up footage of the systems in action. Watch this trial run. Perfect calculations, perfect mechanical execution. Yet in actual combat, their success rate was barely 30% of what human snipers regularly achieve. They had the numbers but lacked the intuition. The hologram switches to show various species' attempts at copying human sniper techniques. The Murky developed pressure-sensitive skin to detect air currents. The Zentari created crystalline structures that could bend light around their positions. Each innovation addressed part of what makes human snipers effective, but none captured the whole. A Nexari cadet's tentacles wave thoughtfully. What were they missing? The human element. The instructor responds, bringing up comparative analysis. Every species tried to overcome their biological limitations through technology or genetic engineering. None of them understood that human snipers aren't effective because of superior capabilities, but because of how they integrate their natural abilities. He displays footage of various failed adaptation programs. The Valkyans created perfect shooting positions that no one could detect, but their operators couldn't maintain position long enough to use them. The Murky developed advanced camouflage systems that failed because their users couldn't control their bioluminescence under stress. The classroom watches as the instructor brings up success rate comparisons. Notice the pattern. The more sophisticated the enhancement, the less effective the result. The species that came closest to matching human capabilities were those that focused on working with their natural abilities rather than trying to copy human ones. He switches to footage of current cooperation programs. This led to an unexpected development. Instead of trying to become human snipers, species began developing roles that complemented them. The Arctians became exceptional spotters, their enhanced vision perfect for target acquisition. The Velderi excel at tactical analysis and support. The display shows joint training exercises. Human snipers now train alongside alien specialists, each species contributing their unique strengths. The Murky's ability to sense electromagnetic fields makes them invaluable for detecting electronic countermeasures. The Zentari's crystalline forms create perfect natural observation posts. A Valkyrian student's neural crystals pulse with curiosity. So our attempts to copy humans led to better understanding of our own capabilities. Precisely, the instructor confirms, his organic eye showing approval. The greatest lesson learned wasn't about sniping at all. It was about understanding and accepting our natural strengths and limitations. Human snipers became more effective when supported by alien specialists, and we became more effective by stopping our attempts to be something we're not. He begins closing the tactical displays. The current Galactic Special Operations teams are more formidable than ever, not because we learned to copy humans, but because we learned to complement them. Each species brings their natural advantages to create something greater than any single approach could achieve. The instructor's cybernetic components whir softly as he faces the class. Remember this lesson well. The goal isn't to become what you're not, but to excel at what you naturally are. The most effective teams in modern warfare combine different species' strengths rather than trying to make everyone the same. The lights gradually brighten as he prepares to end the session. Next time, we'll examine how this understanding led to revolutionary changes in galactic military doctrine. The adaptation phase didn't fail. It simply succeeded in an unexpected way. The diplomatic chamber's holographic display shows a series of tactical withdrawals across multiple star systems. The instructor manipulates the image, highlighting specific instances where entire battle groups refuse deployment to areas with confirmed human sniper presence. What you're witnessing, he begins, his cybernetic hand steady, is the moment when conventional military doctrine collapsed under psychological pressure. Not from overwhelming force, but from the mere possibility of human sniper presence. Azentari representatives' crystalline form shimmers with concern as they review the data. The numbers seem impossible. Entire battle groups halting operations because of potential individual threats. The instructor nods gravely. The breaking point wasn't physical, but psychological. Watch this footage from the Centauri Rim campaign. The display shows massive alien formations refusing to advance into seemingly empty territories. These troops had superior numbers, advanced technology, and complete air superiority. Yet they wouldn't move. He brings up psychological evaluation reports from multiple species. New ritual behaviors emerged among frontline troops. The Murky developed complex light signal patterns they believed would ward off human snipers. Valkyrian units wouldn't deploy without performing elaborate sensor sweeps that consumed precious operational time. The display shifts to show military expenditure data. The cost of countering human snipers exceeded the military budgets of several mid-sized star systems. Forces were spending more resources trying to detect snipers than on actual combat operations. A Nexari analyst extends their sensory tentacles toward the data. The technological race seems particularly interesting. Each new detection system led to new human countermeasures. The instructor completes the thought, switching to technical specifications. Every advancement in sensor technology was met with increasingly sophisticated passive concealment techniques. The humans turned our own technological progress against us. He displays strategic analysis from multiple command centers. Traditional military doctrine became obsolete. How do you maintain supply lines when a single human sniper can halt an entire convoy? How do you establish command posts when your officers refuse to remain in one location for more than a few minutes? The chamber falls silent as the instructor brings up casualty statistics. Notice these figures. Actual casualties from human snipers were relatively low, but the operational impact of their potential presence brought entire campaigns to a standstill. A Valkyrian military advisor's neural crystals pulse with realization. The resource expenditure ratios are staggering. For every human sniper in the field, we were committing thousands of troops and billions in resources to counter them, the instructor confirms. The mathematics of warfare had been completely rewritten. A single human sniper could effectively neutralize force concentrations hundreds of times their size, not through direct action, but through psychological pressure. The display shows new military formations developed in response. Forces began dispersing to minimize sniper threats, making them vulnerable to conventional attacks. They concentrated to defend against regular forces, creating perfect targets for snipers. There was no effective solution. He brings up scientific research data. Multiple species began studying human psychology, trying to understand how they maintain their effectiveness while inflicting such psychological damage on their opponents. The results led to a fundamental reassessment of what we considered combat effectiveness. The instructor's organic eye narrows as he surveys the chamber. The breaking point came when military leaders realized they couldn't win a conventional war under these conditions. The human snipers had created a new form of warfare where traditional advantages meant nothing. He displays the final statistics from the last major campaign. 70% of all combat operations were affected by actual or suspected human sniper presence. Units refused assignments, commanders wouldn't expose themselves, and supply lines became practically impossible to maintain. The lights in the diplomatic chamber dim slightly as he concludes. The ultimate irony is that human snipers achieved something no other force had managed. They made traditional warfare so psychologically costly that diplomatic solutions became the only viable option. His cybernetic components whir softly in the silence. Next time, we'll examine how this led to the current era of military cooperation and the integration of human sniper techniques into galactic peacekeeping operations. The breaking point didn't end warfare. It transformed it. The assembled representatives exchanged glances, their various biological displays showing a mix of concern and understanding. They had witnessed the moment when the galaxy's military doctrine had to evolve or collapse under the psychological weight of an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't predict, and couldn't stop. The instructor's cybernetic hand makes one final adjustment to the holographic display, showing a comprehensive timeline of human sniper integration into galactic military forces. The classroom sits in attentive silence, recognizing the gravity of this concluding lesson. My personal encounter with a human sniper, he begins, his organic eye focusing on a distant memory, taught me something no tactical manual could convey. It wasn't just about precision or patience. It was about understanding warfare on a fundamentally different level. The display shows various training facilities across the galaxy where human instructors now command astronomical fees. What you see here represents the most expensive military training programs in known space. Every major species commits significant resources to learn from human snipers, not to become them, but to understand their methodology. A murky cadet raises her luminescent appendage. Professor, you mentioned earlier that the humans didn't deploy their best snipers in the war. How do you know this? The instructor's expression shifts subtly. Because now we work with their best. The ones we faced in combat were their standard military snipers. Their elite units, their specialized hunters, remained in reserve, a fact that still unsettles military strategists today. He brings up comparative analysis data. Their top-tier snipers achieve things our sensors indicate should be impossible. They don't just calculate shots, they feel them. They don't just hide, they vanish. Every time we think we understand their capabilities, they reveal new depths. The display shifts to show joint training exercises. Watch how different species work together now. Human snipers coordinate with Arxian spotters, Valkian tactical analysts, and Centauri forward observers. Each brings their natural strengths to create something more effective than any single approach. A Nexari student's tentacles wave thoughtfully. But how did this change happen? From feared adversaries to valued instructors. Understanding, the instructor replies, bringing up diplomatic records. We realized that human snipers weren't just weapons to be feared, but teachers who could help us understand warfare in new ways. Their perspective on combat operations has revolutionized military thinking across the galaxy. He displays training methodologies from various species. Every major military force now incorporates human sniper principles into their basic training, not to create snipers, but to understand how they think. This understanding has led to more effective troops across all combat roles. The hologram shows current galactic defense strategies. Modern military doctrine acknowledges that no defense is perfect, no position completely secure. This humility, learned from human snipers, has made our forces more adaptable and effective. A Valkyrian cadet's neural crystals pulse with curiosity. You survived an encounter with a human sniper. What was the most important lesson you learned? The instructor pauses, his cybernetic components whirring softly. That true strength lies not in superior technology or numbers, but in understanding. The human sniper who took my limbs could have taken my life. Instead, they taught me that warfare isn't about destroying your enemy, but about achieving your objective with minimal force. He brings up his final display, showing the evolution of galactic military cooperation. Today, human snipers serve as guardians of peace more often than agents of war. Their presence alone often prevents conflicts from escalating. The very fear they once inspired now helps maintain stability. The classroom watches as he shuts down the tactical displays. You've learned about their techniques, their capabilities, and their psychological impact. But the most important lesson is this. Human snipers changed warfare not because they were better at killing, but because they were better at understanding the nature of conflict itself. He faces the class, his expression serious. As you continue your military careers, remember that the most dangerous opponent isn't the one with the most advanced weapons or largest army. It's the one who understands warfare so deeply that they can control the battlefield without fighting. The lights gradually brighten as he concludes. The galaxy feared human snipers because we didn't understand them. Now we respect them because we do. They taught us that true military superiority isn't about domination, but about comprehension. His final words echo in the quiet classroom. Remember, when you encounter human snipers in joint operations or training, you're not just meeting superior marksmen. You're meeting individuals who have fundamentally reshaped our understanding of warfare. Learn from them, not just about shooting, but about thinking, understanding, and achieving objectives with minimal force. The class ends, but the lessons learned about humanity's most effective specialists would continue to influence galactic military doctrine for generations to come.